The law is that political parties should not participate. They are participating. There are provisions in the Constitution for sanctions for political parties who breach this provision and also for candidates who breach this provision. As law-abiding citizens, what we should do is to report the political parties who are doing it and the candidates who are doing it for the appropriate sanctions to be applied. And that's why I gave you the example of the stealing thing, and you didn't seem to appreciate it. There's a law against stealing. People steal every day. Does that mean that we should repeal the law against stealing? No. So if we are saying that with partisanship at the local level we are playing the ostrich, then we are playing the ostrich. We should allow people to steal. Because even though there's a law against stealing, people continue to steal.
Let me take this other text. Please let Prof Ahwoi know the following. The government has a roadmap that has addressed all his concerns, and that the first time to apply the referendum, if it goes through, is 2023. If it is not 2023, pardon me, but 2021, when the first MMDCEs are to be elected, because the tenure for the current MMDCEs. So the fact that there's a roadmap has been...
This is the confusion that the government is deliberately introducing. And their supporters, they deliberately confuse the issue of electing DCEs with making the district assembly system partisan. Article 55.3, which you are voting on, simply says that parties can sponsor candidates to district level elections. It doesn't say that parties can sponsor candidates, can sponsor DCs. To elect DCs, you have to amend Article 2431, and they know it well. The reason they are introducing that confusion, and it is the President Akufo-Addo himself who created that confusion, is because they know people like DCs to be elected. But they also know people don't like the partisan district assemblies. So they create the impression that by voting to make the system partisan, you are voting to have DCs elected. It is not true. So when I say that the first time we are applying it is 2023, I mean that's the first time we'll be applying it to elect district assemblies, not DCs, because 55.3 will not make DCs electable. What will make DCs electable is 243 clause 1. And they know that that one requires 2/3 majority of parliament. It doesn't require a referendum. But they have mixed the two up that, yes, we want to elect DCEs on partisan basis. The two must not necessarily be mixed. For making the assembly system partisan, the people must be involved. That's why you need a referendum. To elect DCs, the people are not involved. It's left to Parliament, and that is for Parliament to take up. So the first time we'll be applying this will not be 2021, because if we vote to make the system partisan, and Parliament does not vote to have DCs elected, that amendment cannot apply to appointment of DCs in 2021.
Are you suggesting that Parliament will not get the 2/3 majority required on Thursday to amend 243?
I don't know. I'm not a parliamentarian, but I can well imagine that it may not.
From your knowledge within the NDC as a party, are you suggesting that because government will support this is coming from government, if the 2/3 does not come, it will be from the NDC?
Well, as I'm saying, I'm not a parliamentarian. I'm not a member of the NDC executive. I don't know what instructions have been issued to the minority caucus. So I don't think it is fair to speak for them here.
Okay, but suffice it to say that if it does go through Parliament on Thursday and 243 is amended and we get a yes vote, the first time for application will be 2021, no?
To DCs.
Yes.
Yes, not to the assemblies. The core thing about 55.3 is that it applies to assemblies in generality.
Right.
But the 55.1, I don't think even had DCs in mind when it was being drafted, because it was talking about sponsorship of elected assembly members and unit committee members.
I also asked the question about the fact that government has a roadmap that, well, from this listener, government has a roadmap that has addressed all of your concerns. Are you aware of this?
Please, are you aware of the roadmap? You are a Ghanaian. Are you aware of the roadmap?
So my texter tells me that the NDC must have been consulted in this, has been consulted in this.
I am sure that if the NDC was consulted, I would have known because they would have given it to me to look at. I have not seen a roadmap. They have not shown it to me. And I'm sure that if they had been shown a roadmap which addresses all of these issues, including the issue of who bears the cost, I wish the texter were here so that I asked him. So on that roadmap, when the system becomes partisan, is the state going to bear the cost, or is that cost going to be borne by the political parties? I would like to know whether that is in the roadmap.
So last week when we spoke to Dr. Emmanuel Akwete, Executive Director of IDEC, what he admitted was that the referendum, and if a yes vote is gotten, it's not the end of the process. It actually begins the process of reforms which will accommodate all of these things you're talking about.
I keep bringing your attention to Brexit. Isn't that what Brexit is all about? They said, oh, let's vote leave or remain. Once we have done it, the rest will be accommodated. Have they been accommodated? Look at the confusion in UK governance now. That is precisely what we are trying to prevent in Ghana. That let us look at all the consequential matters. Let us reach agreement on them so that we all know that when we vote yes, this is how these matters are going to be addressed. But you don't ask me to go and vote when I don't know what is going to happen after I have voted.
For the sake of the costs involved in reversing the referendum, which has been planned for and catered for already, would you be amenable to the idea that let's vote and then do the consequential amendments afterwards?
In 2015, everything was ready for district level elections. One candidate in one electoral area in Efutu went to the Supreme Court that he had not been permitted to register. The entire election was cancelled. In fact, this election we are going to have on December 17th should have been held last year. But because we lost about 8 months on account of the Supreme Court decision, that's why we are now having that election. 309 million Ghana cedis was lost as a result of that decision. That is the price of democracy. So whatever has been spent on preparation, etc., if we have to lose it in order to have a more effective, a more beneficial system, I think that it will be worth it.
Okay, so at the moment, if there's a roadmap in place to do these consequential amendments, you would accept the referendum?
I have to see the roadmap, and I have to see how those matters have been resolved. The 30% issue, which you don't want to talk about, is a very, very serious consequential matter. I want to know how the roadmap has addressed it. Because, you see, one, you can say that, well, it's in the Constitution, so we are not amending it. After the election, the president will appoint 30%. Two, you can say we are repealing it so that the assemblies will become all elected. Then you may lose the benefit of getting people with expertise, etc., appointed to it. Three, you can also say that we are ceding the 30% to the chiefs and traditional authorities as they used to do in the past. I would like to know what the roadmap says on the 30%, for example. So I don't want to answer hypothetical questions. Many of the questions you are asking are hypothetical. Will I agree to the referendum if these matters are going to be addressed? How are they going to be addressed? What consensus have we reached as a country as to how we address them? We need to see that in order to be able to cast informed votes at the referendum.
But is the NDC in support of electing MMDCs?
Yes. If you look in our manifesto, 2016, we have put it there that we are in support of electing MMDCs. But we said on the basis of the Fiajo Commission report. Now, so again, even when we come to electing DCs, there are various forms. One is election on non-partisan basis. One is election on basis of political parties. The Fiajo compromise or midway was that, look, because ours is a unitary state, the president, the cohesion of the nation is even more important than the decentralized local government system. So the president must have a say in what happens in the district. So the president must nominate 5 people for the DCE position. Now, because the DCE is a manager, unlike the MP who is only a legislator, the DCE who controls human resources, he controls financial resources, he controls assets, he manages the district. Because of that, you need a certain minimum level of competence. So after the president has nominated 5, they must attend an interview at the Public Service Commission, because the Public Services Commission is a national body responsible for determining the competence of people to serve in the public service. So the Public Service Commission will interview them, then they will shortlist 3 of them. Then those 3 will be now voted for directly by the electorate in the district. This was their recommendation. So that's another way in which DCs may be elected. So even electing DCs, itself, it lends itself to discussion and consensus. And that also we have not had.
There's a